So how's it going, guys? I was doing my podcast earlier, and I did my 20 favorite albums of all time, and kind of inspired myself to do a video, um, just like my top 10 favorite debut albums. So I could just get into it right now. My number 10 favorite debut album of all time would be Deftones' Adrenaline. Um, some favorite songs would be Engine Number 9, Root, minus Blindfold. Just an aggressiveness that few bands in that genre were able to capture. Really groundbreaking stuff. That I think it's a similar album in, I don't want to say sound, but style to Rage Against the Machine's debut album, which I also have on this list, but I'll get to that later. So yeah, definitely Adrenaline, number 10. Number 9, Decimate the Weak by Winds of Plague. Brutal album. For deathcore band, they sound totally different than everything else that was going on at the time. 2008, I think, is the year that Decimate the Weak came out. The symphonic element really adds. I think it's really beautiful. Some awesome breakdowns they were able to create, and the hardcore elements are just awesome. Favorite songs would be the title track, Decimate the Weak, Anthems of Apocalypse, and Impaler. Next up, Remission from Mastodon. Super sludgy, groundbreaking stuff. March of the Fire Ants, Old Nessie, Mother Puncher. Just Remission is just you just can't stop Remission. Remission is a moving train. You can't stop it. Such a great album. It's good to listen to front to back. Number 7 would be Facelift. I've always been a fan of the grunge era, and I think some of its legacy has transcended into some more modern music. But Alice in Chains' Facelift. Alice in Chains is one of my favorite bands, so definitely my favorite grunge band. Facelift is a great album. They were able to experiment on some songs that sounded a lot different than songs in their body of work. But We Die Young, such an awesome opening song, a killer riff. Man in the Box, one of their most famous songs. And I think Bleed the Freak is definitely a standout track on that too. Number 6, Walk Among Us from the legendary Misfits, one of the most influential punk bands, and in the metal scene, the most influential punk band of all time. Walk Among Us, great album. 20 Eyes, I Turned Into a Martian, and Vampires, my standout tracks on that album. Just amazing what Glenn Danzig and Jerry Only were able to come up with, recording in a garage with crappy equipment. On allowance and minimum wage, they were able to come up with some really amazing stuff. And for 1977, 1978, that stuff still holds up today. And few punk bands will ever come close to even touching the stuff they wrote on that album. Number 5, Herzeleid from Rammstein. Rammstein is, not many bands from other countries sing in their native language. Most bands, come to America and speak and sing in English, but Rammstein's one of the few bands that are able to keep their music in German, and really I think it works. If you listen to some of their songs in English, they're good, but they're not as good. You can only have Rammstein in German. It just makes sense. Standout tracks would be Rammstein, Wollt ihr das Bett Flammen sehen, and Du riechst so gut. Those are definitely my favorite tracks on the album. I really think the industrial metal sound, no one can touch them when it comes to that. With Flocka on the keyboard, he really can come up with some cool stuff, some cool synths, and yeah, I think it's a really fun album. Number 4, Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine. Like I said with the Deftones, just it really set them apart in the genre. I mean, you can lump Rage Against the Machine in the new metal genre, but more so than the Deftones, I really feel they stood out the most. They had some like elements of Tool, some elements of grunge, and then pretty much straight up rap vocals with some screams and Tom Morello. The stuff he can come up with is just amazing. Killing in the Name of Know Your Enemy and Take the Power Back are my favorite tracks on the album. Number 3, Slipknot, another band in the new metal genre. It really it seems like I'm a huge new metal fan, which I'm not the biggest new metal fan, but hey, I like what I like. Only One, Surfacing, and Sick are my favorite albums, but Slipknot, no one saw Slipknot coming, and they've only been around since '99, and they're already one of the biggest metal bands of all time, and they will go down in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as one of the biggest metal bands of all time. Just the creativity that they had and still have to this day is just unmatchable. One of the most creative bands ever, in my opinion. Number 2, pretty much the inventors of thrash metal, and the band that made metal and rock music what it is today. Metallica's Kill 'Em All. They took Black Sabbath and mixed it with like a Motorhead sound, and you got thrash metal. Hit the Lights, Whiplash, and Four Horsemen are probably my favorite tracks on Kill 'Em All. Just just a real fun album. Everything's like fast paced on it. You got a punk attitude in it and a metal attitude at the same time, and it just works. Metallica, I don't know if a band could get as big as Metallica is today. I don't know if it's possible. And my number 1 favorite debut album of all time will be Undertow from Tool. I think I did put Undertow in my top 20. I can't remember where it landed, but I probably wasn't high enough. I also said Undertow had a grunge influence, in my opinion, which really works. Similar to Facelift or some of Helmet's early stuff. Heavy riffs, but I think they had a grunge influence, in my opinion. Favorite tracks would be Bottom, Crawl Away, and Swamp Song. But a lot of people loved Opiate, but when Undertow came out, I think people realized what this band was going to be like, and they're my favorite band of all time. And Undertow is one of my favorite albums of all time too. I do have 2 honorable mentions. One of these was an honorable mention in my podcast, and the other one wasn't. But the first honorable mention is Hybrid Theory. Like I said, this is the album that got me in. It like made me a fan of music. You go from being a kid, you just listen to whatever's on the radio, and then there's that album you listen to, and you're like, oh, this puts you on a path. I like this. This is something cool. I could see myself listening to this kind of stuff, and it was Hybrid Theory. That was the album that did it for me. I listened to them. I wanted to play. I was already playing guitar at the time, but Linkin Park made me really want to play guitar even more so. And that album, to this day, I don't listen to it as much as I should, but I think it's a great album, with the exception of In the End, because it just got overplayed too much. And my other honorable mention will be Periphery's self-titled debut album, Periphery. Just a fantastic album, and I really think Periphery is one of the few bands in the past couple of years to really create a new sound, and they did start a movement. A lot of people give the Jet movement shit for some reason, but the stuff Misha Manzoor comes up with is just amazing. Dude, one of the best guitar players of all time, in my opinion. He's just amazing. 7-string, 8-string, 6-string, it doesn't matter. He can play it all. There's nothing he can't play. So that rounds up my top 10, my 2 honorable mentions. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.